you ready to bend your mind?
A lot of people that will be watching this will be having a hard time understanding when we speak about astrology, astrophysics, and numerology and sacred geometry, how that is a construct, because they think it's a part of nature because it's in nature. You look at the Fibonacci sequence, but again, these are things that are shown to us through text, through scripts. But people will say, well, it's in nature, so it can't be man-made. It's just man's interpretation of nature given to us in a way that we can understand it.
Well, it's life.
It's a part of the matrix, I think.
Yeah, but see, the Fibonacci code in itself is no life there. There's no life in it. Because when you're looking at life, you're looking at a life form. That's not the Fibonacci code. It's like the puppy dog. I don't have to teach you what the puppy dog is. It already is what it is. You just have to have the direct sensory experience, and that life is the Fibonacci code. But we believe that there is something else behind it. So we create physical constructs. So very early in our fallen state, we'd be so caught up and enchanted by these definitions put in our heads by others, like the Adam and Eve, the apple and the snake. So the snake is a man putting an image inside Eve's head, and Eve's going, wow, Fibonacci code. And we're looking at it and oh yeah, I can see this, and we're entertained by it. But you can't talk to the Fibonacci code. You can't eat it. You can't sleep with it. You can't taste it. You can't hear it. All you can experience is life. Now, it's the same with Superman. You can't experience Superman. You can experience the life of the man that you can smell and hear and see and touch and taste, acting as Superman, or the judge acting as the man acting as the judge. You cannot experience the judge. You can only experience the man acting in the scripts of the judge, regardless of the regalia, regardless of whatever is uniformed around it, right? So when you look at it carefully, it's our head spinning with definitions still, explaining astrology, explaining numerology, explaining Fibonacci code. None of this exists. Now, if the thing to remember here, a lie is a curse. If we lie, we're processing curses. Now, can we become conscious of what we're processing? Because if we are, we'll see the harm that we're causing while we're supporting the lie that we believe in. And that's why the Roman civil law works so powerfully, and how we are the creators of all the lying, and why we keep ourselves trapped in it. And they come in as third-party administrators, because if you let's go back to another part of this. The highest levels of the occult own nothing. They own nothing. Nothing. They don't touch money. They don't hack in any way that way. What we do is they get us to want to claim the land title deed, get us to claim that belief structure, that concept, get us to perform it. And then we invite them in as administrators to oversee the administration of the matrix of all this fiction that's going on. And so they benefit as third parties and gain all the rewards. So that's why the high levels of the priesthoods behind the Roman Catholic Church and the Church of England and the Jesuits and the aristocracy and all the fiction behind that have so much what we call ownership of land. They don't own it. We've given them responsibilities to administrate it. So they don't process the curse, so they believe, unless we wake up and put it back on them. So we have to get back to the earlier stages of our fall and look at and be honest and be sincere. If the Fibonacci code exists, and it should be before us, nothing in our head telling us how to think and feel about it. We should be able to sense it directly from the life forms, not from another man who explained it to us. Because if we default to that, we're already in the matrix of another box. And it's not our life, it's not our dreaming. We never created it. We just borrowed it from somebody else, which means we've forgotten who we are. And this goes back to ritual sacrifice again, and how the occults were with blood-eating and blood libel, and how they deceived us. Look, the greatest lie in liar is the one closest to the truth. They cause the greatest damage of all because the duped, the believers, learned to trust them. Now, when you mention about David Icke and all these intel operatives, there's so many of them, they're everywhere. Their tactics are brilliant. They can explain the truth to us we will follow them like Pied Pipers, and we'll be led into the next layer of the matrix that they will control us in, and we don't even see it. So this deception has multi-layers within layers of this deception going on, because the head is still spinning with the alphabets in our head that has come from outside us.
I was thinking about people who've just kind of perhaps come round to the fact that, you know, like Paul was saying, a learning of astrotheology and all these, and they are all constructs again. Like I get that, like say that as I move from the law to, you know, you just like it's like you're just removing yourself out of box after box after box. But especially like I moved away from that movement because they're all still fighting it. They're all and it'll be such a head spin like to listen to you, Arthur, as it is for me. But you know, I get it, you know. But for people, perhaps like Paul said, who are watching it and going, "What?" Because you know my new site, Dark Matters, people are just getting to grips with the fact that they've been a legal fiction, you know. And it's like, you know, this to take them into
Got to start somewhere. You know, when I started this in 2005, 2006, you know, I could tell you there was hardly anyone out there anywhere. When I was talking, some people could relate to it, but could you imagine what it was like back then? Today, the thing is that the cults, the sameness. When you have more than one thinking and feeling the same way, you can form a cult. That's the system. Now, once you form the system of more than one, accepting and believing the concept of whatever it is we're entertained by, we're leaving ourselves open for someone to take over the cult and control the cult of the sameness, everyone trapped in it. So the New Age movement, the New World Order is the same way. So they're going to entertain us with so much what we think is the truth. But we'll be still trapped in the sameness models. And look, every single cult that's ever been created, look, every great man that ever came in, man being male, children, anyone, and have done something from the truth, they then have to go in and institutionalize, politicalize, culturalize. They have to change it so they can form a cult out of the wisdom of the life of that man, so they can then drag all the followers and believers in it, and then they can then take over the cult and move the whole cult, the hive mind of the Ball Collective in Star Trek, and move it to wherever you want, and send the drones into any direction you want, and they'll all believe that this is Fibonacci and we're all connected, we're all part of this, but you're still being controlled and manipulated by these people behind it. That's how deceptive this thing is and how powerful it is.
The New Age for me is like, and I don't know what your thoughts on this. So I have another podcast that we're just starting called with my friend Johnny, called Dark Matters, and we're having a guy who's agreed to come on as our first guest called Tony Sayers, and he's like you know, the New Age and certainly, but you know, they're selling that you need to cleanse your chakras and your energy points and all this. I mean, I'm a trained yoga teacher, so I kind of like took myself out of that construct as well, and then kind of went into the law. But you know, I'm not saying that we don't have energy centers, but one of the theories is, and I don't know what you think about this, but I guess it's another construct, is that, you know, the chakra system is something that kind of is, you know, hooking us into this false light matrix, really. And we know that the deception of the New Age, because that is one of the biggest cults going, this 5D consciousness, this cleanse your chakras. And I'm just like, and actually it's turning in, it's just another it's a big deception for people to move from the system and fighting the system to move into a whole nother system. There's just another layer within that box, and it's just like watching people kind of fall into that for me is like, woo.
It's a distraction. And from that distraction is confusion, because who we really are ain't there. Who we really are is not there. We're not present.
All the confusion, confine. You know,
it's like the analogy I've used. Exactly, I use that analogy of Alice in Wonderland, where Alice doesn't exist, Wonderland don't exist, so we need little Mary to act as Alice. So little Mary must know the script. So we can sense little Mary. We can touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see little Mary in present sense. So she's always present before the living, always. But Alice is never going to be present, regardless how well little Mary performs Alice, be it on stage in front of 100,000 people and that pulls off the most brilliant performance, staged and all. It's still not proof that Alice in Wonderland exists before the living. So Alice and Wonderland are not present with the presence or presence of life. But all the time, man, little Mary, is present with the presence of life. So when you can get your head around this and use this as part of the scrutiny and contemplation, we can easily unravel and pave our way out of this bloody nightmare without bringing it with us and recreating it again and again and again back in nature, back amongst life.
Yeah.
We stopped doing
And
it.
I think that's exactly what happened. You know, they'll give us something that just creates the same thing under a different, it's just got different makeup baubles and shiny bells on it, you know. Even these people in the movement at the moment who are fighting the system, you know, it's be careful when you fight the monsters lest you become one. They're just creating the same thing. And, you know, like I'm trying my best to kind of like go, whoa, you know, you can kind of see it. And it's just like you say, it becomes this, it's the hive mind being moved over somewhere else. It's the Borg in it, and that's a cube, and they just love that. They love putting you in cubes, putting you in boxes. Oh,
it just shows you how gullible we are. You don't start a war to stop a war. The war continues. Well, so we don't use a fiction to stop another fiction, because the fiction continues. And then the occult, the sameness models that we're trapped in, because we are social creatures, and we like to be part of village life and tribal life. So we get sucked into the modalities of the occults of Fibonacci code. Or this is how the New World Order has been crafted. If you want to comprehend this, the New World Order is not the current chaos and all this stuff. It's the remedy to all this destruction, where they're going to bring everyone to their knees and everyone's going to be begging, please, something has to be done. You got to do something to change. And remember, everyone's given up their life. Everyone's passed the buck. Everyone are slaves. They're all drones. Everyone caught up in this, inside any form of a construct box, are trapped. So someone like Prince William's going to come along, or King Charles is going to come along, and with the magic wand, we're going to free you up from everything, guys. We've realized this, we're going to change it all. But we're going to have to do something. And this is what people don't notice how, and this is where the David Icks and all the intel operatives and everyone have been subliminally working away at everybody. Because when I was exposed to the Theosophical Society as a 15-year-old boy, and I was reading what I was reading back then and looking at it today, I could see the gradualism of the Deepak Chopras, the Dalai Lamas, and how they've introduced gradually and forming the cults of the New Age, and having everyone trapped in it with their goddesses and gods and all these other things that are going on, because all of them, and we're talking about gender now too. Gender is another cult of multiple cults within the cults of gender. You can move these cults into another system where they all think they have freedom. So basically, the intelligence networks behind Freemasonry at the high level of the occults act as the gatekeepers of the enclosure of what one is trapped in, and they act as if they're the ones that opened up the gates. So we're the cattle, the goy, the useless food eaters. We've been moved inside the cult through to another cult with the sheepdogs that we are. This is where David Icke has his truths. We're the sheepdogs, and we act as a sheepdog, and we move ourselves into one. Then we open up another, and then we move us again to another one. And then we move into another one. And suddenly, oh my God, we've gone too far. We've gone too far. Arthur, you've gone too far in explaining all this. We've got to go back one or two. We've got to go back one or two here now. And then everyone's found their peace. Oh my God, we're in a perfect enclosure, but we're still trapped.
That's
we
what
don't
I've
even realize
said.
it. We don't even, and this is, they're like landscapers, you know. It's like you go into a garden, you want to create a garden. And so you put your plant as an intel operative behind a underground radio station, and or you put your plant in as a TV presenter, or whatever. And you know that in the seasons to come, that plant will prosper and be a beautiful plant in the garden of the fiction that they've created, right? In landscaping a garden of this deception. So they actually do that in the occults. They're brilliant at doing this, and they will deceive us in so many different ways that we still haven't been able to step out of the whole thing completely and go, oh God, how stupid, because I'm still performing the scripts of the fiction that keeps me trapped in the cult or whatever I'm still being entertained by. And if I leave that one, I'm going to go to another one, and I'll go to another one. And we don't seem to know where does the matrix end? Well, it ends when we stop the language and stop buying into it. And we go back to senses, and this is nature, back to nature. Paul's already on the way. He's growing food on his balcony. He's doing what he can within the growing what he can grow. And won't be long, his whole bloody apartment will be a garden.
Well, I think he says in the Matrix, doesn't he, Morpheus? I think it might be the second one. He's like, "Oh, hang on a minute," when they kind of come out the Matrix, but then they're in Zion, and there's a line where he goes, "Uh-oh, is this another Matrix that they've given us? This idea of like the New Age Zion, whatever it is, and they're all partying and they've all found this bit." And there's a line, and it's little overlooked, and it always stuck with me. And I thought, just be careful when you do that. But like, and I think there is that real um s- split, for want of a word. We don't want to kind of use that word divide, which is D and demons and background
Yeah.
programming, which is like abound at the moment. But I think it's almost like there's the people that, for those that have eyes to see, you want to go back to the garden almost, as you're
Yeah.
doing, and creating life and growing and going back to the land and things that are sensory. And then there's, obviously the people that are going further into another construct, even though, in this perception of that is some form of freedom or some form of ascension. And I can kind of see it. But I'm always having that question. This is why these conversations are so important, because people who've just kind of, perhaps, I don't even like that woke up kind of thing, but just freeze. But we were starting to see the how things work. This next level layer that we're giving them, is they're going to be like, it will box their heads in a little bit. But it is just I think it's like taking a deep breath. You have to tell them, you think that's air you're breathing. It's just it's like the things that we can kind
It
of.
really is. It's something that we each will come to it. Like, I came out of a war zone and I still carry the trauma of that war zone, only less of its effect has on me. So I've learned how to recognize all the thinking that comes from the matrix of that cult, where all the trauma operated, and all the different cults that I went through as I grew up as a young man. I can hear all the voices, because every voice in my head is just another man who defines something to me. When we wake up, we learn to calm it all down. We become very calm, and we don't let that emotion or that ego influence our thinking. So we can make decisions from the true heart of the man and progress down that path. And it may look like, my God, we're still in the midst of chaos all around us, because we're working with machinery, we're still working with tools. But the goal is to be able to recreate a paradise where we've dropped and dropped and dropped everything, like crossing the bridge. I call it the kingdom is the bridge we cross. When we cross to the other side, we haven't brought the system and all its culty stuff with us anymore. So it all happens in here, between the ears, and it all comes back to our true discernment and our ability to sense another man's intention. Now, there are a lot of booby traps in all of this, because the occults, every time we breathe out water, when we breathe out, we create water, or mist. And our intentions, our dreams are encoded in the breath. And the whole collective of man is in the air all around us all the time. So I could right now, if I wanted to work with the occults, get inside your head and put thoughts in your head and have you think that it's you doing the thinking and it's your dreaming, when all the time it's me manipulating you, and you don't recognize it because you're not sensitive enough to sense it. I'm not saying you are, you're not. I'm just using you as an analogy here. So when you start doing the real work and you have an influence over public thinking, and you really want to do what we've been doing, you're going to see this layer of attack come as well, because these people will throw everything at you they possibly can to weaken you, to destabilize you, to get you to turn against your partner, to get to have battles and all kinds of emotional stuff, right? So that's another subject, whether we touch on it here, or whether we do, if another chat was to happen, whether we touch on these things is something we can look at. But what I'm getting at is that everything of life is intention. There's a source of life behind the intention of what we are experiencing as what we call life. The more we can go back to life and sense life, the more we can calm down and not listen to the emotions anymore. No longer listen to the person in law, the ego, the straw man, the agent in commerce. The more we can shut down all the alphabets and stop listening to it. We don't fight it. We don't get into a battle with it. We recognize. So what I say to people all the time when they come and work with us, or I meet them, I say, look, whatever's coming up for you, let it be there. Say thank you. Hi, great for you to come again. And you can listen to what it has to offer, which all the shit, and then go back to your life. Go back to what you're entertained with naturally, working with seeds, working with flowers, working with plants, and just become immersed in the life of your dreaming and creating that. So you're learning to disconnect without feeding it. Because when we get in the battle and we start fighting in the matrix, we bring it with us and we're empowering. And all we're doing is sending all our energy back to the man behind who directed the intention in the first place into the cult that we got sucked in and been ruled by it ever since. You follow this? Because it's just man. Or if you wanted to peel it all back and just bear everything naked, it's just man has turned against man. That's all it is. Nothing else is happening. There's no supernatural consciousness out there, no fallen angels. There's no otherworldly alien shapeshifters. There's no UFOs. We're the only ones here.
Me, Arthur.
We are the only ones here. We are the only ones here because it's only a man talking about UFOs. It's only a man talking about the physical forms of the UFOs. It's only a man who created them. When we get past all the deception of disclosure and get past all the super soldiers on Mars and get past all this other stuff, we realize it's just another arm of the matrix coming at us that we're being manipulated emotionally. Because while we believe something is more powerful than us, while we accept something has more power, be it foreboding or not, we will accept others manipulating us because we're still sheeple, we're still spoon-fed slaves needing to be fed and be directed to wherever that intention of those want us to go, because we don't want to create our true intention of our real life anymore.
Yeah. We've just given that power away. Like it says, the kingdom is within, doesn't it? You know, everyone's looking for these outside saviors, whether it's Trump or whatever movie you want to give that energy to, you know, with the language, with all of it, with the symbols and the pomp and the theatre. And, you know, one of my favourite quotes was always like Frank Zappa, you know, in the end, you'll just see the brick wall at the back of the theatre. You know, they'll move the props away, they'll move the tables and the chairs, and you'll just see the brick wall, you know. And when you see that, then you can hopefully try and get through it and get back to hugging trees.
And remember that the brick wall is not apart from us. It is us.
Yeah. We are the brick wall.
We are the problem. We are the brick wall. We are the lie. We are the ones processing the curse. We're the ones doing it. We're acting it. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah. I was going to say, I kind of find it ironic that like the biggest play in the world on the world stage is Shakespeare's quote, isn't it? The world's a stage. And we're all actors in this play. And all we have to do, as you've done, is walk off the stage, because that's where the lie is. On the stage, we're all pretending to be these.
And that's the conversation. That is the conversation in our head that we have to recognize and don't fight anymore. We have to learn to just allow it to be there so it can subside as we stop reacting. We don't react anymore. We don't act by performing. Now, this goes back into the occults of ritual sacrifice and bloodletting and blood libel, because every emotion is encoded in every letter of every alphabet. And the emotion are natural feelings that you don't experience in nature. Because see, life is a feeling. See, when we talk about thoughts and feelings and dreams, they're all one and the same. It's just life. It's life. And it's undefined. So there's no outside, inside. There's no beginning. It's just undefined. And as each of us is raised up by life, by nature, and the sensorama that we are sensed by blood, the good heart of life, of nature, uplifts us so much, and we form our true power of our true life. And we're not inside confined boxes because nothing's defined to us. We're undefined. Now we're the real Superman. We are the puppy dog that's grown to be the dog. Now we are the real thing. You know, we haven't been altered, twisted. We haven't been desecrated. So the battle in the occults, in the covert system of slavery, was to get us to feel emotions through the breath so that we can sense their intention of fear, doubt, uncertainty, distrust in the languages that we talk. But we become so preoccupied performing the scripts because we're busy acting as Superman in the job that we perform, and we're acting, I've got to work, got to make money, I've got to perform my job during the day, I've got to think about the car and how to drive the car, I've got to get the car booked in for service, oh, there's the street lights, I've got to stop red, oh my God, I've got to read, I'm reading this book, and I'm going to watch this movie, and I'm going to go to that restaurant. Our head is so spinning with so much fiction that we've not been able to feel the true feelings. And so we're left with only the unnatural feelings of emotion, which are the intentions of others trying to manipulate us, which you look behind Corona and the fear porn, it comes out of ritual sacrifice, because nature does not teach us fear. For example, if I was to walk along the edge of a cliff, I can have the choice of jumping off and I can end the life of the body, but that's not fear. That's just me wanting, if I don't want to do that, that's just me saying, well, I want to keep this body going, this vessel, so I can keep using it in this life. That's not fear. Nature doesn't teach us fear, right? Nature doesn't teach us doubt or uncertainty or distrust or suspicion or loneliness or emptiness or any other destructive thing, including rage and everything. Nature doesn't teach us that. Same as what we think the Fibonacci codes exist. We're so used to thinking, oh, nature does this and that, but they're just scripts in our head that people told us about nature, how nature behaves. It's not true. It ain't real.
Yeah.
We're still performing as the fear, as the lie, as the doubt.
Do you think that when they say that is it if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, did the tree fall? So I was thinking when you were talking about, obviously when we stop looking at their scripts and their theatre and their acts, like, and Paul, that was a really cool way of putting it for people to understand it, that we just kind of step off the stage and out the theatre, and that we stop looking at it. Then I suppose like it just stops to be, or it ceases to be, at least.
Sure.
Or do you think it's still there?
I've
I always kind of like in my head.
I've experienced that. I've had direct sensory experiences of it, but this is just the experience that I've had. Look, the past and the future, the thoughts of the past and the thoughts of the future needs us to exist here and now to think and feel them.
Yes.
If we don't exist here and now, no thoughts of the past and the future can be thought or felt to be experienced.
Yeah.
So we're
the
it.
present isn't it, as they say.
We're it. We are it.
Yeah.
We're it, no matter what we're imagining. And the occult's all rooted in imagining.
Yeah.
And the imagining is where the deception is, because when you're experiencing reality, you don't imagine anything because you're sensing it directly. It's a real experience. So the tree falling, but people say to me, Arthur, but the tree, nature will still be here, but you're a man. So when I say to people about this, like, we're the only ones here. And someone said, but Arthur, but if we were not here, the nature would still be here. But you're a man who heard what I said. Imagine there's no man to hear what I said, to answer what I said.
Yeah.
Think that out.
Yeah.
You think that out. Because it's only man to man.
Say that quickly after you've had a few drinks.
Slow it down. Because we are the only ones here. And this is the greatest lie of them all. This is the greatest deception the Freemasons ever pulled up of all, from the founding father who started it, the original man who came up. This is their greatest lie, to make us think there was always something else outside of us, something else going on, that we are just insignificant, small little significant nothings. We're living in mediocrity and scarcity, because it's all part of the downtroddenness of what they made us believe that we're creating, because we're in the matrix of that thinking and that feeling, which is really life itself. We're creating that life. So what I'm getting at is that it's eternal life is that we go back to the tribes and the villages and the sacred sites. For example, a tribal elder, a great-grandfather, created a table, and the intentions for the table and the purpose of it is still there in the table. Now, I could be a grandchild. Grandfather's already laid to rest. And I can, through the water of his breath, and it's still here amongst us in the present, living still here now, I'm still alive. I can sense, if I'm not inculcated, my head's not spinning with all this shit, I can sense the purpose of why he created the table. And that reverence, that respect, that say was to protect and look after it, because I love the ancestry of my family. We don't think like that. It's in the moment. It's all happening here and now. We don't think of past and future. It's all happening here. So Earth and the trees and the mountains and the valleys were created by our ancestors. But we're so far gone, we don't know it anymore. But everything to our experience is man-made. Everything. Because we're the only ones here. And we're it. And so that means full responsibility for everything we think, feel, and do. There's no more passing the buck. So it doesn't matter that you have to accept what I'm saying to be the truth. if we're prepared to at least stop performing the fictions and start cutting back and start returning to being a man on the land, a true man on the land, where you're the man and you're responsible, and that you are caring for that land, and you will have other men and women who also act like that, emotionally free. We're not performing what's in it for me, mine and I and me and own, and and living in doubt and uncertainty and fear and distrust and all the other destructive emotions are no longer influencing. They may be still popping in our heads, but we don't listen, react to them anymore. We're capable of recreating paradise here and now.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think the Matrix is a hell, but we do have, we can have the heaven. We've just got to stop listening to the Matrix. It said in the Decode Reality, the Logan, the Decode guy, who I'm kind of watching quite a lot of his videos, like I say, hopefully we'll get him on. But he says that, that voice in your head, well, it's not yours, it's them. It's the same thing, and it's their language, it's their letters, it's their symbols, it's theirs. It's not ours.
I've been pointing that out since about 2005, not to garnish me, but I saw because everything we are experiencing as a construct is an intention, and the intention is rooted in a man who dreamt it.
Yeah.
So we are experiencing man turning against man manipulating man, brothers and sisters all turning against each other. That's all it is. It's just, like we peel it all back, it's just man turning against man. Nothing else is going on. Because everything else that's going on is fiction. It's all fiction.
Exactly.
If we're going to be sincere and we don't want to process curses anymore and stop being Godzilla, we have to wake up. Now, that doesn't mean we're miraculously going to just drop everything. Oh, we're free right now. We have to practice 24/7 how to live like that again. Because we've been practicing 24/7 how to be a slave inside the cults as those spoon-fed drones. So we've got to learn to undo it. So can we, it's like partitioning the brain and going, okay, it's all an illusion, but can we just listen to all the chatter, allowed to be there, but now I can listen to the heart of my real life, where I don't want to covet anybody else. I don't want to live in jealousy and fear. I just want to live in the good heart and allow everything to happen. Just allow everything to be free again and learn to live in the moment so that you're uplifted by the true power of life, which is what we're all gifted with and forgotten and put to sleep. And we're burying it. We're destroying life everywhere. There's hardly any semblance of that memory left for us if we continue on the path we're on until we wipe it all out, until there is no nature anymore. And we've done it. Not some global warming or, some astrological, theological movement of the planets and the stars that have done all this. Again, that's another voice in our head.
So on the subject of voices in the head, where would you stand? Because again, a lot of viewers will be will be wanting to know the answer to this question, or should I say, would like to know your opinion on this topic because there's a lot of people now that are talking about manifestation, using the natural law, the 7 principles of natural law or law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. Now that is for me, that is a human innate ability to be able to visualize something, and then for that very thing that you've visualized and that you've embodied, for that to appear in your life. Now, is that nature, or is that another man-made construct, and it's a trickery, and it's something that's
it's our true nature. It's our true nature misused.
Okay.
Because we are that nature. Yeah. We've misused it, and we've become confused, lost in the distractions that keep us so mesmerized and discombobulated that we don't notice it. So we are a film projector, and any image of any intention that comes across it like an animated script, as it passes across the focus of our life, we give it light, life. And it, like in a cinema, it will bounce back at us in the image of our projection. So let's forget all the fictions of that misuse. How can we work with life without doing any more harm? So what do we have to do? And create that, and that's what we enter into to create. So I'm a hypocrite now, and I am very compromised by what I'm about to share. We're sitting on 27 acres here. We're looking at fictional dollars coming from gifts from other supporters so we can acquire other land around it. And the goal is to use heavy machinery to transform this into a billabong, like dams to dams to dams, water channels and connection, and get all the water and have multi-million liters of water flowing through the property. And then overlay it over, and with that, in the background will be a botanical garden, come flowing fields, and then overlaid by food forests and organic gardens and abodes and sheds and paddocks and stables and horses and things, and get it to the point where the village that comes out of this, by all those who want to be part of this, who don't want to bring another cultish thing into it, so there's no ego anymore. We've gotten not letting the ego perform anymore. We create a village life where we've gone back pre-invasion by the Freemasons, back to the tribal life. But in this case, we're working with the village that we use the system to get out of it. Yeah. So you got to know where the line is drawn. So in projecting what you're talking about before, are we able to focalize on something? Yes, we do. Can we misuse it? Yes, we can. We're living in it. The evidence all around us right now. But can we do something from the good heart so we're no longer doing that? So we don't need to have children be kidnapped, sent to school, to be brainwashed and turned into the wheels of on the cogs of white collar, blue collar, aristocrat, whatever, and role play out the title deeds, the status, the standings, the exclusivities and privileges, and all the other things that come with it, so that I guess what I'm saying is that we're putting an end to recreating it in the dream of kingdom that this man is dreaming, so that I'm looking out through the windows here on the land that I'm living for, so that the baton can be passed on of that true freedom for all the children who are brought up by nature and never been sent to school. We don't need to send them to school to be a man.
That's so powerful, isn't it? Because they know. I know I've had some friends of mine and who had 20 armed police on the door because they didn't answer a case, shall we say, in that jurisdiction.
Well, this is the greatest threat.
Homeschooling the children, so they know, obviously, the power of those young minds when they're not indoctrinated, and when we send our children to school to be educated, we actually gift all A1 agricultural land in the system. But we know it's all a system and we know it's all a construct. But I think it is, again, it's that be of the world, not in it. And scripture, your script, it's a code, and it gives you X amount of days to move from commerce and overturn the temples of commerce in your father's temple. And you've got to kind of perhaps take a little from the system to then create the thing that you want to see. I would say
exactly.
You get into trust law, acting as vanguards for assets, whatever you want to do, but you've got to kind of, like I said, your focus has got to shift, but you might have to there's a transition in there into that, that's part of it, I think, for on a kind of practical sense. But
everything gone wrong is because we fed it. Everything's going to go well now is because we fed it. It's up to us. So the people who come, the 20 police, the government agency who come behind it, I'm just doing my job. I'm like the people behind the crown. We're just doing our job. So we have to be able to do this really smart. So we've got to create community immunity. We have to celebrate us. So sure, we will have to let our young children be exposed to their system, and we have to also at the same time show them by example. So look, what I look at is we don't start small fires that have to keep us busy, distracted, putting them out when we're already dealing with one big fire. So we have to hold the dream so magnificent, so big. That makes me a custodian of this kingdom dream. That the 14-year-old boy who dreamt for the truth and lived for the truth and all that, and come to realize that life and nature is the truth. I'm a custodian of that dream. So does that make me the leader? No. Does it make me responsible? Yes. Does it mean that I have to intervene if someone comes along and brings their shit in, they want to allow that to be in part of that dream? Of course I'm going to stop it. I'm going to get it in and boot it out. And if the man has to go, the man goes too. If the man doesn't want to change this creates all kinds of other issues. But unless we have the courage and the tenacity or the passion for a bigger dream and can see clearly how it works, which means we've got to be able to recognize the fiction in here and go, oh my God, we can't let that trespass into the kingdom dream because it doesn't belong there. So we don't make decisions from that fiction that will then influence the kingdom dream. So we can use the fiction to create the paradise we're dreaming for, but we got to drop it all as we walk into kingdom and leave it all behind us. So this is really challenging. And it means you've got to have no attachment to ego. So that means, can you sense the intentions of another man? Can you sense the heart of a man's life? Now, we're all effed up. No one brought up in the system isn't. We are all damaged. That doesn't mean that the damage, it doesn't mean that we have to bring it into everything we're dreaming of the heart. We are capable of keeping it apart from it. So we can be in the dream of our heart, but not of it anymore. Sorry, we can be in the system, but we don't have to bring it into the kingdom dream and then be of that shit that we brought in with us. We can learn to draw the line. So what happens to people like me? I have to intervene, got to talk, got to explain, got to show, got to provide bigger pictures all the time. Help people learn bigger pictures, so they can grasp the bigger picture of the kingdom dream that we're creating. If they don't hold the bigger picture, they have to grow into it. So Fiona and I are custodians. And Fiona and I still argue. We're not perfect. There's no perfect in any of this, just intention. I don't want to live in the dream and support this anymore. I want to do something the best I can to get out of this. So what Paul said is true. Can you focalize on something and that so be incredible? Of course we are. Can you sense my intention? Can you sense my heart and not listen to the fictions that represent me before you? That's really hard for people because the voices come and say, oh, Arthur's like this, Arthur's like that, Arthur's like, when it's not. Arthur may get pissed off. That doesn't mean Arthur's trying to sabotage or corrupt or destroy people, because we're damaged. And we have to have grace. And the more we bring the peace and calm, and the more that we don't aggravate each other by bringing fiction to each other. Fiction is all the role playing of emotion, right? The despair, the misery, the pity, all these things that are not natural. We've got to stop giving it our energy and not bring it into and say, oh, he's like that or she's like that. It's very, I'll tell you, you're going to count your real friends on, maybe you're lucky, on one hand.
Yeah.
Until you can get that really strong.
It's definitely happening, isn't it? I know personally for me, we're doing that. We're creating this Garden of Eden, it's all top secret. But yeah, it's that, you're feeling, and I think when it's in here as well, when you kind of transmute that is that lead to gold in alchemy for me, and then what you're seeing is something completely different. You create it. We've stopped creating and we've just we've just been told what to see and what to create, but it's being co-creators again. And
it's true, because the thing is that it's true because we've practiced 24/7 being immersed in all the emotion. See, behind land title deeds, mortgages, leases, rents, and all that is the fear for tomorrow's security, food on the table, roof over our heads, etc. So we're actually nurturing the doubt, the uncertainty. It ain't the land title deeds. Absolutely. We're nurturing and giving energy to this lie. So then we have to look at the other dark side of man-made invention and not let it come into the kingdom dream that we hold and live for. So we've got to learn to draw the line. So you'll find in your own catharsis, through all the shamazel of everything that you've come to realize, like your life, like the shamazel of this man's life. And we go, well, so what? We're still capable. We still have this power. Okay, sure, we dreamt ourselves dumbed down and stupid. We're weaker. We're less than what we're capable of, but we can still create recreate how village life was before the Dark Ages began, because our ancestors pre-invasion were not in the Dark Ages. We're in the Dark Ages now. This is the Dark Ages. So we've got to be able to be responsible and accountable. So, I work with fiction. I will work with, see, for me, I do what the priests do. I'm out of the system, but I will use their money. I don't have a bank account, credit card, but I'll use Fiona. I'll use other people and what they have, so that they can't come after me and use me as the reason that they have any cultish rights to get at me. So I'm actually using their world against themselves, and I'm manipulating people, but I do it with full disclosure, why I'm doing what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, to navigate a way out of it. So I'm not sitting around waiting for the magic wand to come along by one day somehow before I can do something. You see, the thing is that back in when we were in Roycroft Street, East Barrel, back in 2005, I woke up during those 13 years of living at this place when we went from having everything to close to being destitute and living in, with raising 4 kids, little kids, to having nothing and having to recreate our life and having all this awakening along the way, going through it and waking up, I've got to create a garden. And we created a garden producing a huge amount of abundance. I got to realize that there's no point waiting around for one day. That's why I admire Paul. Paul's already growing food. He's not waiting around. He's doing something. So he's getting practiced. He's practicing. He's learning how to take care of life so life can give him life. So we have to practice, because all the time we've been in the matrix, we're practicing how not to have life, because we're working in anti-life. So we're spoon-fed. We're relying on food being transported by trucks from long distances away. Australia now, just an example, and I have mentioned this you probably heard this in the recent videos that I did last year, that between Sydney, Newcastle's north of Sydney, and down to Canberra and the Illawarra, which is the south coast, out to the Southern Highlands, there's roughly 7 million people. And 99.99% of all these people are spoon-fed. They don't know how to grow food. And if they did, they don't know how to grow 24/7 all year round and be able to look after their life, because they're too spoon-fed. And the younger kids are all in their iPods and computers and all their technology. They're all in the cults that keep them busy and entertained, so that they're all spoon-fed. They need money and fiction to go to the shops. And these kids think that they're awakened and they're free. And they're not. And 40% of food is now imported, roughly. That food is compromised very badly. The rest of the food is also compromised, refrigerated, frozen, you name it. And it comes from distances with people who don't know you. You're not in their dreams, so they're not holding your dreams. In a village that we're talking about, everyone knows each other. No one dare want to harm each other. And we only live for the greater good of each other. So all that's imbued, that intention's imbued in everything we hold. So we've got to bring it all back and undo this damage and stop being spoon-fed slaves. Right. So we had what we call the Cronulla riots, what was it, 15, 18 years ago or whatever it was here in Sydney, which is where Australians turned against Australians who are ethnic minorities. And they went in with baseball bats and that, and were bashing each other because of girls being kidnapped and being raped. And so the police weren't doing anything about it to stop it. So the Australians took it into their own hands. And there's a lot of things were not said in the media, but there were terrible things that were done. Homes were invaded, houses were burnt, people were terribly bashed. I believe that some people even died through this violence. It's pretty bad, but this was not mentioned. That part was not mentioned in the media. But I had access to people, and I was able to find out about what was going on in suburbs like Lakemba here in Canterbury, in the part of the Sydney metropolis. So Cronulla riots looked like nothing compared to hungry people who are all spoon-fed. If something happens to petrol or energy or money, because the Australian dollar is the US dollar. We don't have an Australian dollar. That was destroyed long ago. So anything like, so that's what the alarm bells, the consequences. Oh my God, while we're spoon-fed, we're so dependent on all of this, so we can be easily manipulated. Well, that's what happened with Corona. Everyone who's attached to it, we're all being manipulated. And it's so easy to, what working jobs had anything to do with coronavirus and all the embargoes of people's jobs? What's that got to do with the coronavirus? Nothing. Yeah. Yet somehow,
and coronavirus
politicians
means poison.
Exactly.
They're telling you.
Exactly. So yes, that's what I'm getting at. So the thing is that the more you practice being responsible for your life, and the buck stops with you, the more you become a man. And the more you wake up, the more you stop that chatter influencing your thinking, so you don't bring it into the dream of responsibility of your full life, the full responsibility. You do not bring it in anymore. So we don't recreate another cult. So then you have a man standing on the land with another man standing on the land, but we're not all holding hands as wimps all together in a circle, thinking that we're all one, and we're all going to, ride this out and be love and peace. Let me tell you, all these people who are doing this are all spoon-fed slaves in a spoon-fed system, and they have no idea what it is to be responsible as a man, to be really a man.
I think that's it. That's the key word. It's responsibility. People need someone to come and save them. It's always something outside of ourselves, and people don't want to take responsibility for anything. People don't want, and that's how this whole system propagates itself. That is the key word, isn't it? Responsibility. And we've got to take that for ourselves and others.
And that's land, food, water, shelter. And they're all constructs and concepts, but it's just creating a domain. A dream is a domain, holding a bigger dream of domain, which is what this man's doing. I call it kingdom. and holding it for other brothers and sisters who want to be part of that domain, who want to carry that responsibility and create a living example so that everyone there is not living out of fear of what they're going to do and not worrying about tomorrow and what happened. We're just going to do it anyway and live as a man. And the legacy, the inheritance of that experience, and those who get exposed to the experience, who come to participate in the experience, we become the disciples, go and carry kingdoms everywhere. It doesn't have to be called kingdom. It's got nothing to do with who we are. It's the life of a man. So all we're really doing, it's not a shift in consciousness. There's never, ever been a shift in consciousness. There's no something Aquarian age coming along and we're going to end up with this new shift. This is all part of this deception in the biggest script of all that they created to keep us enchanted as we move from, like I said, from one enclosure to another, but without ever leaving the enclosure. We're still trapped by the guardians all around us who control us, because we think we don't realize that they are the bad guys acting as the good guys. So if you follow that,
I totally 100%. I've been been trying to flash dance that one to people.
It is. It's get your hands dirty. It's to get on land. We're on land. We're all on land now. Look what we've done to it. Look where our head is at. So what do we focus on, and what have we done with it? We've just got to get back on land. We're already on land and start taking responsibility again. So land, food, water, shelter with that community, family, children. Looking
souls of our
feet
back on the land.
And you're my sister.
This is why I was finding, in the law, the passport, they always they just want your head because they've took the land from you. They're just like, they decapitate you, don't they? And in quantum grammar, with the eye, with the head off the body, and the 3 crowns of Baal. It's all the constructs.
All a big scam.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when you get past,
and this is it. It's a rabbit hole you'll never get out of, and that's the point of it. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people. But you explain it in it's quite simple, isn't it? Really, it's our silly, simple human brains, I think, that kind of make it more complex, really. But then perhaps you do need that backdrop, that, like you say about the story of your life, without me deep diving all the stuff I've perhaps done for 15, 16-hour days for 20 odd years, it then makes sense. But it all just becomes the backdrop. It's the brick wall, but you are the brick wall, and we'll be over here.
Yeah, exactly. The sun's shining. When you're living the dream, you are the sun that shines over the dream of the domain of life that you hold. And that is the light of our intention that we hold. Now, while we are practicing being that light, the light exists. While we're imagining being the light, it ain't existing. It ain't there because we're not living it. So much of the deception today is still where people are imagining freedom. They're imagining consciousness. They're imagining spirit. They're imagining divine and everything else you could possibly imagine. But they're actually not living it. They're not being it because they're too busy being spoon-fed. They're too busy in the occults where all that has been formulated as we've gone from one enclosure to another. And that's what we've got to wake up to. And that kind of manipulation needs to be taken care of by each of us who acts fully responsible as the man on the land. So it's no longer about freedom, really. It's just be the man and not let anyone control us anymore. So why I dropped the name, I got to see all this. I saw that. And then as I went along, I got to walk the talk. I can't just talk about it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We lead by example, don't we? We have to, it's like an inspiration, really. But I think we just have to kind of, it's like I suppose it's like showing the way, isn't it? I am the light. I am the way.
Screen. I don't know if the screen's freezing for you. The screen was freezing for me then just for a couple of times.
But
so that's
definitely.
Wake up, go to bed, living the dream. Be the light of the dream you say you are. Instead of being the dark light, that's what the David Bowie, the dark sun, with whatever that astronaut was. I've forgotten that. It's very clever in what he was trying to tell you the truth. David was actually telling us the truth. So either we own the fiction and we're dead, dreaming about freedom and consciousness and life and all that, and it'll always be at arm's length.
Or we'll live in it.
Or we live in it. And if we're living it, we've got to start dropping everything and stop talking about it, start doing it. And the more we do it, we start dropping all the fiction around us. And what's going to happen? You're going to be on land, growing food, digging the ground, bringing back the food for us, making the food for us so to take care of everything again. So we have more time to contemplate. And then we can begin to deal with all the more deeper issues that went us backward, well back to the ancestors, way back many generations, because we can't deal with all of it. We can only deal with what we can now. But by creating the true freedom for people to have that peace and calm, we can begin to unravel all the other shit that's still going on without corrupting each other and destroying the community or the village or the tribe that we are forming, or that we're growing together. So it's an artificial community because strangers are going to come, but it's not really. It's just the spirit of man coming to form a community. It's not going to be my bloodline family community because our families are all decimated by this problem. There may be just one or two, if we're lucky, amongst our families.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote to Paul. I said to Paul,
tribe.
I was saying to Paul,
Awesome.
when was it? 3 weeks ago, or whatever it was. And Paul, he was talking about that kind of freedom. And I said, well, why don't you come over and get involved here? It wasn't to come and follow me, right? It was simply, well, we need to get one of these off the ground. We just have to get one of these off the ground with powerful people who can walk this talk, who can provide all what's required to get a village operating really powerfully, so that we can then use it as an inspiration for others who want to emulate it in their uniqueness, right? To break down, because these people have no real power over us, nothing. And then the rest is, the rest of it, like for me, using music and film, celebrating it, making sure that the wider communities know that we're not a cult, we're not some widows, and we're not some, preppers, thinking for ourselves. But everything we do, we grow everything over and above what we need. We give it away free. And so at the moment, the bridge is that there'll be others out in the system using the system to direct fictional dollars into the kingdom while we build it. Those of us who are creating it and helping to build it all is for everyone else to come to be part of it, so that we can carry more and more people, because we're creating all the infrastructure of how village life used to be, right?
Yeah.
So we are truly independent in that way. And so we have to use the system to get out of it. This is how I've come to it. I'm not saying this is the only way. And it's possible there may be other ways that we haven't even thought about yet. But that's the way we've approached it. And I've never been able to fault these kind of thinking that we've been working on since these epiphanies in 2005 to 2007 came along. So in the end, this is all that matters. All the talking in the world will do nothing to change the reality that we're in, this matrix, unless we actually change the way we're living, which means we've got to stop listening to what's going on in here that's keeping us trapped in it, and start focusing on dreams. Because what's happening when we wake up, it becomes bigger than us. In the matrix, it's just us, the ego, the identity. It's all about us. What's in it for me, my life, my career, mine, this, mine, that, mine, my freedom, my consciousness, mine. When we wake up, it's nothing mine anymore. We don't need to teach the puppy dog what it is to be a dog. It's already a dog. We don't need to teach who we are. We already are. It's already happening. The sun's already shining. We're already breathing air. Yes, everything's working. We don't have to recreate it. We don't need to bring in and say, that I'm some this, or I'm something like that. Whatever constructs in our heads, we just start living it. Be responsible. Don't give it away. Don't give it up. And when shit happens, stop and have a look at where the line is drawn. Are we crossing over the line? Are we crossing over the line? Are we crossing over to do harm to somebody else? Whether it's ostracization, ridicule, abuse, whether it is doubt, whatever comes up, we've got to learn to see these things as well. But this is what we're riddled with. We've been practicing living in doubt and fear and distrust and suspicion and et cetera, the whole of our life in the system, saturated by this coming at us every which way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet the truth's before us all the time. The sun's still shining, nature's still doing, everything's working. It's still before us, but we've forgotten it. We've been so entertained by the life for so long that the curse is destroying everything. We're destroying everything until nothing's there to remind us anymore what the truth is.
Jazz hands, isn't it?
Don't
look at that, look at this.
Exactly. And we've got free will, so we're capable of anything. We're capable of anything. So anyway, awesome. It's follow your heart, follow your inspiration, whatever it is you feel. And for us, we went from learning the truth, wanting to know what the truth was, to my wife coming along, and now we're wanting to do this together. And it's very challenging. It's extremely challenging. It can be very isolating. There's a lot. I mean, there are a lot of shit's been thrown our way. I mean, a lot of shit. But the thing is that it comes with the territory of this stuff. When you stick your head up above the fog, when you stick your head up above that fog, you're seeing them. These are cultists. They're seeing you.
Oh, they love to come and try and chop it off.
Exactly. So then you got to
Absolutely.
do so they cannot kill you. We're still alive all this time. We're still here. And we've counted so many things that have been thrown at us. Truly, I'm not making this up. There's been many things have been, because in the moment when we're calm comes the most incredible wisdom, the most incredible wisdom. And in that moment, you can act on it and you deal with what's happening. So everything we need is there when we need it. We don't have to accumulate, oh, got to have it, just live your life, start living and leave yourself open. So bigger pictures, open up to the biggest picture, because we're surrounded by life. And that consciousness of life is our consciousness. It gives us our true life, our true freedom. We don't have to fight for it. Just allow it to be present. So we're present to it. Its presence is present. Live it.
Yeah.
And let it all. So do you have to jump 10 foot across the room to grab your next breath? Of course not. Well, we live in the moment. Breathe, live, go for it. There's no death in that way. If you know who you are, that is.
Yeah,
Love that,
exactly.
Arthur. Love that. And I think that's a nice place to end this one. And I'm hoping we could do another one, because you've got so much information to share, so much wisdom with that as well. Have you got anything to add, Carly?
No, just enjoyed the chat, and yeah, look forward to we'll do a part 2, and we'll perhaps continue if Arthur will. We can ask him to come back and join us again. That'd be really fun.
And see, Fiona can be part of it. We had to take our daughter. Apologies, sorry. Fiona was going to be part of this, but circumstance with our youngest daughter, Fiona had to take her to an airport, and so Fee couldn't be here. Then she has to go and do. They started a gardening business. Another girl is involved here to bring other fictional dollars into this group. So I'm here because I don't go out and make money and any of that. So I do what I do here. Yeah. So thank you, and I'm up for it. And Fiona said that she'd be up for it if you like us to get involved and you know share and share it. Well,
what we do.
Awesome. If it just reaches just one somewhere, we've done our job. Just
exactly that.
I always say that.
I really appreciate you giving me so much time as well. We've been on for nearly 2 hours now, and
wow,
really thankful for that. We may have to split this one, I'm thinking. So there's a lot of information for people to try to soak up and absorb. But yeah, really good to get you on, and thank you once again.